It was February 1862, and the Confederate forces at Fort Donelson faced an impossible choice: fight, flee, or surrender. For the brave men of the 7th Texas Infantry, this was a moment that would define their legacy. But betrayal by leadership would seal their fate. This is their story. Just days earlier, on February the 6th, the Confederacy suffered a major blow when Fort Henry, guarding the Tennessee River, fell to Union forces under General Ulysses S. Grant. With Fort Henry lost, the Union turned its sights on Fort Donelson, strategically positioned on the Cumberland River. Grant's strategy was clear: capture Fort Donelson to secure a key route into the Confederate heartland and open the way to Nashville. By February 12th, the Union Army, supported by a fleet of ironclad gunboats, had surrounded the fort, trapping its defenders.
Among the Confederate defenders at Fort Donelson were the men of the 7th Texas Infantry under the command of Colonel John Gregg. These Texans had already endured tremendous hardships before even arriving at the fort, suffering heavy losses due to disease during the grueling winter in Hopkinsville, Kentucky.
By February the 9th, the 7th Texas had marched to Clarksville, Tennessee, and just 4 days later, they arrived at Fort Donelson, joining the Confederate forces tasked with defending this vital position on the Cumberland River. Although weakened by disease and exposure, the Texans were determined to fight. As part of Colonel Thomas Davidson's brigade, the 7th Texas was positioned in a defensive line protecting the fort's perimeter. For days, they braved freezing conditions and Union bombardments, preparing for the inevitable clash.
On February the 15th, Confederate forces launched a desperate counterattack to break through the Union lines and escape. The 7th Texas Infantry played a critical role in this bold effort.
Before dawn, Confederate troops struck the Union right flank along Winds Ferry Road. The 7th Texas advanced through rugged terrain, driving Union forces back and briefly opening an escape route. The Texans fought fiercely, gaining ground against overwhelming odds. One Texan later recalled,
"The icy ground was stained with blood as we pushed forward, our hearts set on breaking free."
The breakout attempt was a moment of hope for the Confederate defenders, but poor leadership decisions soon turned the tide.
Generals Floyd and Pillow, commanding the Confederate forces, hesitated at a critical moment. Instead of pressing the attack and retreating, they ordered troops back to their original positions. This indecision squandered the hard-won gains of the 7th Texas and their comrades. Disgusted with the failure to capitalize on the breakout, Nathan Bedford Forrest refused to surrender, declaring,
"I did not come here to surrender my command."
Forrest led his cavalry through frozen swamps and escaped to fight another day.
By the night of February the 15th, 1862, it was clear that the Confederate defenders at Fort Donelson couldn't hold out against the overwhelming Union forces. That evening, an extraordinary betrayal unfolded.
Generals John B. Floyd and Gideon J. Pillow, the senior Confederate commanders, abandoned their posts and fled the fort with a contingent of troops. Floyd escaped with 2 regiments, and Pillow reportedly took a small group of men across the river on a flatboat. This left General Simon B. Buckner, the 3rd ranking officer, to manage the surrender. On the morning of February 16th, Buckner sent a note to General Ulysses S. Grant requesting terms. Grant's reply was swift and uncompromising. No terms except unconditional and immediate surrender can be accepted. With no other options, Buckner agreed to the terms, and approximately 13,000 Confederate soldiers, including the 7th Texas Infantry, became prisoners of war.
The surrender of Fort Donelson was a devastating blow to the Confederate war effort, opening the way for Union forces to invade Tennessee and eventually capture Nashville. For the 7th Texas, it marked the beginning of a harsh chapter in its story.
Many Texans captured at Fort Donelson would endure months of imprisonment at Camp Douglas in Chicago, where disease and poor conditions claimed the lives of hundreds. Those who survived would later be exchanged and continue their service in the war. One Texan reflected,
"We fought with all we had, but it was decisions far above us that determined our fate that day."
The Battle of Fort Donelson marked a turning point in the Civil War and a defining moment for the 7th Texas Infantry. Their courage in the face of overwhelming odds stands as a testament to the resilience of Texas soldiers. Join us next time as we continue to explore the untold stories of Texans in the Civil War.